Okay, welcome everybody to the fourth episode of Mahogany Thoughts. I am one of the hosts, Dr. Terrence Duncan. With me is my main man and partner in crime, Mr. Terry Butler. Mr. Butler, what's going on in sunny Coronaville, Jamaica?
Absolutely. It's peaceful out here. The natives are out here doing their thing. Somebody selling T-shirts. I see women dancing to reggae. Uh, Kids laughing and playing. It's a beautiful place out here. My imagination is awesome.
Absolutely. Kind of remind me of that song from 8 Ball MJG, All in My Mind.
Right.
Hey, but I like to be there right now myself.
No doubt.
White sands, blue skies, blue ocean.
Just like Eddie Murphy and Morton did in Life. We got the boom boom room out here.
Right.
everybody got a role.
Yeah, everybody got a role. Hey, everybody, welcome to Ray's Boom Boom Room.
Exactly.
Also, we on the podcast, we have Charletta Taylor again. Charletta, welcome back to Mahogany Thoughts as a regular contributor. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. And we do apologize for the conclusion of the first episode, but when you deal with technology, sometimes it doesn't cooperate like the way that you think it does. I mean, everything was fine until the last minute after 50 minutes of recording. So imagine that.
That's okay.
That's all good. So today you're going to be on prime time. Next guest, we have, in a continuation from episode 3, we have Dr. Robert Russell from Indianapolis. Dr. Russell, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Last episode, we had talked about Dr. Russell's experience from actually having the coronavirus. Dr. Russell is a medical doctor in the Indianapolis area. He holds several titles, several positions. He's very integrated in the healthcare industry in the state of Indiana. Very knowledgeable brother, and he gave very personal details, very eye-opening details as to the effects of the coronavirus from his personal perspective. His wife had it, and thankfully, prayerfully, both of them are turned around the bend. Mrs. Russell is doing better. Dr. Russell is getting better himself. We talked about some things about exercising, changing your nutrition or eating more nutritiously, and making sure that you have the right minerals and nutrients in your body from everything from vitamin C, zinc, probiotics, and just make sure you have a lot of fluids. So, it kind of is more of a carryover for the last 2 podcasts that we had prior to, where we're just currently hitting this theme of managing our bodies during the coronavirus. So this particular episode, we're going to have basically a panel discussion, and we're going to talk about some of the misinformation as discussed 2 podcast episodes ago, as well as what to expect moving forward for Black people as far in terms of taking care of their health and addressing health disparities. Because after this pandemic ends, the battle still continues for us to take control of our bodies and get better as a community. So thanks again, Dr. Russell, for hopping on the show again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like I said, I appreciate it. You guys are doing a wonderful job getting this information out to the community, and it's a pleasure to be a part of that.
No doubt. So we're gonna go ahead and just kick off the panel discussion. And Charletta, do you had some questions for Dr. Russell? And like I said, we want to get it from a lady's perspective as well. We got to have the queens on board with the kings to be able to figure out together how we're going to move the needle forward. So go ahead, Charletta.
Okay. So basically, I like to simplify things, and I like to look at things on a practical basis. Because I tend to mentor single moms, I like to look at things in regards to how they look on a practical basis on a day-to-day level. And what that means is I was thinking about what specifically sticks to us as a community of Black people, what separates us. And usually that means that we tend to, as Black women, end up taking care of, I mean, not all of us, but typically, when you think of us, we usually end up taking care of people before ourselves, if you think about it. Um, and sometimes it's a cultural thing. And whether it's on purpose or not, whether we're groomed to think that it's some type of badge of honor, we tend to do it. And the thing that I like to get across to women is that when I was making the statement when we ended the last episode, when I said mask, I wasn't saying it in terms of the mask that we're wearing now to prevent from getting the virus. I was saying in terms of when you're traveling and you get on the airplane and you're seated and they make the announcement, the flight attendant says, put your mask on before you put your child's mask on. I was using that analogy because you cannot take care of your child first. You have to take care of yourself first because you can't take care of your child if you're not healthy. So that's the point that I would like to make sure that as a community, we need to understand that we have to get to the place where we're exercising and that we're eating better and that we stop trying to take on this thing where we're not going to the gym because we're thinking that we have to stay behind to take care of everybody else except for ourselves. So that those are the things that I think we have to open up those conversations. Um, and it has to be a family thing. And Terrence, I know that you as a husband, you're good about, and I've been to your house when you have like family get-togethers. You're in the kitchen, you you help, you're right alongside of your wife. Um, so I think this conversation needs to happen along with from men to men. Um, and it needs to be everybody's conversation, not just women to women, but it needs to be men to their sons, and it needs to be a family conversation. That's the message that I would like to say to everyone that's listening, that it needs to be a broad community conversation, not just something that we as women say to each other. And I hope that makes sense to where it's a broader conversation because usually men that do these things don't have a problem with it. But um, and I hope I'm communicating this well. But if if I'm saying this right, cooking is a basic life skill. Cooking is not gender specific. It's we need to get away from this thing where when you meet a young lady, we need to stop this. Can you cook? Can you? Because cooking is a basic life skill. Okay, it's not gender specific. It's it's something where we need to learn how to cook healthy foods. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves and come away from um, some of the things that as a culture we do where we're not taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. When you speaking on the cooking skill, of course, I learned how to cook from my mother. My parents got divorced. I guess I might have been in about the fourth grade, and then um, I spent time at my dad's house, and majority of my time was with my mom's house. And anytime when she was in the kitchen, she always, even though I didn't even want to at the time, she'd always like teach me little stuff. If you want to make this, put this in here.
Mhm.
So she'd have me cooking meals sometimes, and that's really where I learned how to cook. Because like my family, if you ever seen the movie Soul Food, like we were like that family. There's actually a Big Mama, and there were Sunday meals
Mhm.
every Sunday. And back then, I guess back then when she was alive, the majority of the women were the ones who were cooking.
Mhm.
The men pretty much sat around and, everybody brought them their plates, sat,
Mhm.
of course it was fried chicken, apple
Yeah.
pies, peach cobbler, potato salad, 5 cheese, macaroni, all of that. And both of my grandparents ended up dying from like heart disease and things like that, even though they did live a long time. But that's where I got my love of cooking was, I say, from a woman is from my mother. So I don't look at it as something that's less of me or something. I'm just like something that's like unmacho or something like that. I just got that from her and like a life skill. So I agree with you.
Exactly. Right. And so, and and Terrence, you can even if you can speak to that, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you think about division of labor from a male perspective? Because it's easy for me to say that because my son is 20. I raised my son to the point where um he's all man. I mean, but I raised him to the point where he knows his way around the kitchen, because I feel that um, that's what you should do. But what is your perspective?
Well, I do agree with you. Like Butler said, I agree with everything that you said. I think that the division of labor should be equitable, but everybody is not in a situation to have that happen as far as like in a relationship status. And I don't want to get too much into that deeper, because that could go on for days and stuff. But I think that the division of labor should be equitable. And I do teach my sons how to cook. I do teach my sons how to clean and just really just, making sure that you're able to take care of yourselves. I mean, because what you see a lot of times too is you see a lot of men who are, like, I think that you had said it earlier and stuff, like, well, do you cook? It's like you really shouldn't have to be relying on somebody to do the most basic of functions, because when you do wound up relying on somebody to do basic functions, you kind of give up some of yourself. Now if you have a balance, that's a whole different story. And what's balance? Well, some people may say that relationship has balance, another relationship may not. But I think more so that you just have to you have to know how to take care of yourself before you're able to take care of somebody else in a relationship. You have to, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of your children? I don't have any girls, so I don't really have that perspective to really help raise or provide on a regular basis. But like Dr. Russell said last episode about his daughter, having his daughter on probiotics and stuff. I mean, it just goes so much more different. And just to really add more to what you're saying, I think that we have to go back to education amongst ourselves. I mean, you have a lot of media stories. You have a lot of social media posts and memes and things like that on IG and through other platforms and Facebook. But we have to understand the basics of telling stories to ourselves so we can get back to doing what we need to do as a not only as a family but as a community. I mean, this virus is, the thing about this virus, it's forcing us to kind of really accept our own mortality in different ways. Whether you had the virus or not, it makes you think about, life for your children when you're gone. I mean, I'm 43. I just can't, that's something, I said I have life insurance. I do have a will. I do have a power of attorney and stuff. But in actuality, when this process was done, I mean, I didn't think that I was going to, excuse me, I just realistically feel, and I still do feel I'll be here for a while. But this is something that really makes you say, wow. So for my kids, it's a blessing to be able to say, hey, make sure you do this and this and that. And at least they got some skills. But, it's just division of labor. And you just, everybody has to be able to take care of themselves and stuff. I mean, you realize like the restaurants and all these different opportunities are available for you. You really, when this opens up, you'll be really interested to see how many people are going to stop cooking versus going out to the restaurant for their meal intake. It's like, I mean, how many people have really lost weight or just noticed just how better they slept or whatever, when you realize all these extra curricular activities are available, has been forcibly removed from us. You know, I mean, I'm still waiting for that day where Butler brings these crab rangoons and this Asian stir fry he's making. Like I'm really, when this quarantine is over and stuff, I expect a really nice plate. But but
I
I
guess
mean that's
I gotta perfect my recipe.
yeah, hey man, I feel
But
you,
look,
man.
they
Hey,
on the way though.
I'll be waiting, bro. Hey, because it's long overdue, man. We haven't chopped it up face to face in a hot second. So, but
Absolutely.
um, but you know,
But I
I
like the idea that I'm cooking things that I haven't cooked before. I bought some sea bass that I'm going to make next week. I bought some sea bass. I've never made sea bass before, and I know I would not have bought that before. So I'm
right,
making things that I have never made before.
absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Russell,
Yes, sir.
I know you talked about nutrition and things like that,
Yeah.
but I think what Charletta has done was a great job in kicking off the discussion about division of labor, eating,
Sure.
cooking, and things like that. But as African Americans, I mean, what should we be doing? What should we be considering about what to do when this pandemic is over? I mean, here we are, in the middle of a stay-at-home, shelter-in-place, whatever you want to call it, stuck at the crib.
Mhm.
But this is going to end at some point. But what should Black families be doing? And the family is whatever unit you want to designate. It doesn't necessarily have to be husband, wife, with children or whatever the case may be. What should we as a people start doing as far as taking care of our health? From it, just on a
Well,
general best practices.
yeah, I'm gonna segue back on something I said in the last episode, particularly about people taking charge of their health. When you go to a fast food restaurant, you don't have control over what's being put into that food. You're just taking, hopefully, that they're giving you something that can just satisfy your needs at that time, but that may not meet your nutritional requirements. So we got to, like you guys have been emphasizing, we got to get back to doing some things that we may have done as we were growing up, or we may have seen older generations in our family do. When you're cooking, you can control the salt content, you can control what other ingredients are in something. When you're relying on heavily processed food or even foods that you have to buy out, you have no control over that. So that adds to the likelihood that your food source may be contributing to some of your health issues. So cooking is actually one of the things that is recommended to improve your health, particularly as long as you're not heavily relying on frying food and heavily breading food, that you are looking at trying to, you know, stay away from very greasy food and things of that nature that also can impact your health. Cooking is one of the things that can actually improve your health. Then it's getting back to being physically active, particularly as we're in the season of this virus. There are a number of studies and number of articles that are looking at the benefit of just exercising in preventing you from possibly having the severest course of this virus, but also the benefit it has to boosting your immune system. Doing something at least 30 to 45 minutes every day if possible, but at least 3 to 4 times a week is going to have so many health benefits for you in the long run. And just to circle back on one of the things that was mentioned, you know, it's not that we need to have gender specific roles. Sometimes we just need to know we all have a role to play. And when dealing with those situations, it's understanding that at some time, at some point, you may have to take on the role that someone else is already doing. So whether you're the man or the woman who's cooking in a situation like this, what happens if the primary cook gets sick? If you don't have some of those basic life skills, now you're relying heavily on outside sources for your food source. You're having to go out to eat and get stuff delivered and to buy more food out. That also impacts your finances. There are tons of studies that show that there is greater financial prudency in cooking at least 5 to 6 days a week versus going out to eat for lunch, breakfast, or even dinner for 4 or 5 times a week. You can improve your own financial standing just by being able to exercise that life skill. So a lot of it is understanding that we got to get back to the basics. That's really what we have to do as a community. What makes this so problematic for our community is our community is very communal in the sense that most of us are, is particularly if you live close to your family, you're visiting your family a lot. Particularly if you live close to your family may be your source of childcare. You may also be a caregiver for multiple people in your family. So for minority communities, for brown and black people, the reason why this becomes so problematic is it's easy for us to transmit this to our loved ones because of our communal nature. And then you sometimes have multiple generations living in one home. So you got young kids who can move about freely, but you got someone in the house that has chronic medical conditions or is 65 or older that's in the high risk group. So now how do you deal with that? Also, unfortunately, sometimes we have limited space. So, as I was talking about my ordeal, I'm blessed and fortunate enough I could quarantine myself away from my family in my own house. Unfortunately, there are a lot of families that can't do that. So being proactive and taking precautions is going to be the best for the entire family. And a lot of that, like I said, we got to get back to the basics.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that, and great points, everybody. And I think just to add further on that, education is very important. It's not about going to college or anything like that, but it's just, making sure that we're staying informed and that we're the ones that are conveyors of the message. I do understand that there's a lot of mistrust in the medical community as a whole, and that kind of plays into whether or not we're going to accept the reality of some, treatment recommendations and some of the illnesses and viruses that goes along. But it just plays a larger part that we just have to continue to hold that conversation, mainly because of the fact that it is our responsibility. By the end of the day, we can't expect the government or other parties or entities to help solve some of the problems that are specific to us. I think it's with all the technology and access and the way that we can mobilize for different efforts and causes, I think that this should be as important as important as other causes. I mean, there's also other issues going on with, do you look at education and whatnot, but definitely need to make sure that our health is priority, because you can't really build a legacy if we're not here.
That's correct.
And so our survival will help predict whether or not we can transfer as many assets down to generation to generation. So
That's
you know
correct.
so actually, when people hear me talk about it, and I know I've been trying to push that a little bit more over the last several months, it's more than just saying, oh, okay, well, I have healthcare, you don't. I think all of us need to have some form of healthcare and healthcare access, across the board. But 20 years, if you can live 20 more years, just imagine how much money that you can accumulate, whether you're an entrepreneur, self-employed, you work for somebody, you're a contractor, freelancer, it doesn't matter. But just imagine if you know how to manage your finances properly, how that can transfer down to your children. I mean, if you're gone today because you're minimizing the virus, or if you're gone today because you're doing a lot of a lot of activities to excess where it's harming your health, you're robbing yourself the ability to take care of your loved ones. And it's just, it's just something that we have to be mindful of. So, Butler, does what are your thoughts as far as this panel discussion is concerned? As far as like what tomorrow is going to bring for us as Black people, for the remainder of this coronavirus and then beyond.
I think it's more or less. I was sitting there, I'm listening to everybody talk, and I keep thinking about now that we kind of have to sit still. Now was a great time, if you believe in higher power, connect with that higher power even deeper. Engage in your prayer time more, engage in just finding peace. Mental health is now also very important. You have to find a way to take advantage of the time that's been given. We have a lot more free time now. So what are some projects that you never completed because you said you were too busy?
Very good.
What are some business ideas that you always said, if I had more time, I'd spend more time doing this? Don't spend it. You can't spend all your time watching Netflix series, watching movies. I mean, have some balance. I'm not saying you have to never watch Netflix, but you can't have that be majority of what you do while this time, because it's time. Once we get back into what we call the rat race, you're not going to have this time back again. So now was a great time to kind of pour into your children. I've been telling my kids, one of my biggest complaints before this was I have multiple children who were athletes. So
Yeah.
they have games, they have practices. They were in AAU, had 2 kids in AAU. So one was traveling to Atlanta, to Chicago, to Kentucky, to Indianapolis. And so once like the alarm hit, it's like a race. You just like you're like on this hamster wheel, so to speak. Now we're not at hamster wheel now, so we have an awesome opportunity to kind of recalibrate, refocus. I've been trying to tell my kids, my daughter, she's just turned 17, a son about to turn 15 in May. I get a lot more time to kind of pour wisdom into them. So you can take advantage. You can teach them more about balancing that checkbook, teach them more about having multiple streams of income, more about what they want to be in the future. The time is all about how you use it. You can't spend this time in worry and fear and thinking about all these other things. The situation is what it is. Do what you have to do to keep yourself safe, but take this, because you may never get another time like this again where you can really stop, breathe, and think. A lot of people don't even take time to think once we're moving and moving and moving, because it would be nothing for my entire weekend to be spent in a basketball gym. When I say entire, I mean entire, from 8 a.m. Saturday to 8 p.m. Saturday, back at it again, 9 o'clock a.m. Sunday to 6 p.m. Sunday. Spent taking the kids back and forth to games, practices, fast food, all of that. And that's exhausting. So, you take this time to kind of recharge, re-energize, teach them all the lessons you never had a chance to teach them, reconnect with God. Any business plans you had, kind of sharpen those up. It's you kind of have to look at it. You have to find a way to have perspective in everything. Yes, it's a lot of people that are hurting, that are struggling, and if always definitely be a servant who you can serve. But at the same time, like Charletta said, if I'm saying your name correctly, was it Charletta or Charletta?
It's Charletta.
Charletta. Take care of yourself first. Now was a great time to take care of yourself first, so you can pour more out. You can't pour you can't pour out into people if you're empty. So just take this time just to breathe, to read, to get closer to God. Just take more care of yourself, more of your mental health. We talk a lot about physical health, but mental health in the Black community is really lacking. And I think that's why we've been shell shocked from the situation we've been put in this country. So we can take a time to kind of recalibrate, refocus, and just operate on a higher consciousness, high of awareness of who we really are. I tell myself constantly, we're a spirit, and we're trying our best to master this human experience. So, however, you have to, and everybody has different roadblocks, different challenges that they have to deal with that others don't. Whatever your challenges, your roadblocks are, use this time to overcome all of that. That's what I'm trying to pick up through this time.
Let me just make two great segue points on what both of you have said. For Terrence, the mistrust of the medical community, people sometimes need to understand that the Tuskegee experiment, which was an unauthorized experiment on African American men in Tuskegee, Alabama, that exposed them to syphilis, didn't end until 1974. Most people think it's a very old thing, but that's when some of us were born. So you may have relatives who actually are very knowledgeable of that experiment, and they may even have relatives that may have been a part of that experiment even to this day. So the mistrust is not misguided, but I think the medical community has done a piss poor job of explaining what has come out of that since then. So a lot of the HIPAA laws, a lot of the consent laws came out of that mistrust. You may have heard about Henrietta Latch and her cells that were used by Johns Hopkins University. There was a book that came out not too many years ago, and there was a movie that Oprah made that too long ago talked about this woman whose cells were harvested unbeknownst to her. She was an African American woman. Those cells are called HeLa cells. Those cells have been used in experiments that have gone to treatments that have made billions of dollars for companies and for the medical community. And that family had to fight for the right to be compensated for those cells being basically stolen from their loved one. So this mistrust is not misguided.
No,
However,
and I agree with you. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't think it's misguided, but no, I
no,
agree.
but I'm saying, however, that's why I said a lot of it is challenging the people that treat you, because unfortunately, there are a lot of people in medicine that have no knowledge of the African American experience. A lot of times, challenge them with what you know and make them learn about it. As your physician is telling you to learn about your risk for hypertension and diabetes, ask them if they know about the Tuskegee experiment. Ask them if they know about Henrietta Latch, and challenge them to learn so they can get a better understanding of what your needs are. And then to segue back on the mental health piece, mental health is a pariah in the African American community. You know, it is, you mentioned counseling, you mentioned going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and a lot of people, the immediate thing they say, I'm not crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just going through a little thing. But you're so right. Connecting with yourself, giving yourself the peace to better your mental health is so very important. And there is no time like the present, like you said, because we got a lot of idle time right now. So this is a great time to center yourself and to learn coping mechanisms and techniques to deal with the things that give you anxiety or depression or even affect you emotionally before we start moving about. So I just wanted to make those 2 quick points.
Well, we definitely appreciate it, and I'm glad that you was able to expound on the point what I was saying about the mistrust of the medical community. So I didn't want to sound like that I had an issue with that, but I think that is a very valid problem. Just kind of like a backstory, reason why both of us actually talked about that. Me and Dr. Russell were good friends. We chat a lot. We had a very good conversation a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday? I can't remember. Every day seems the same. But we had a very long discussion about this particular topic, and we actually had a conversation about the research. And Dr. Russell, he's actually in the field as a clinician. I actually am a practitioner or more of a researcher, and I kind of gather the literature review and to kind of expound on my points. But the book that I'm writing on, the Mahogany Legacy Project, there's an area that I'm focusing on that it's looking at the research that's being conducted. What a lot of people don't understand is that research is being conducted and there's no solutions. There's not too many policy solutions. And it's just something that both Dr. Russell and I had agreed on, that it's our responsibility as being Black and carrying that title is to go ahead and get this conversation more going and more forward thinking, because these people there's a lot of universities and agencies that are conducting research, and they're using it to boost themselves. And it's like, okay, well, I had a novel research on African American and diabetes and how it affects their health. But after that research is conducted and they get the money for the research, there's not any implementation in place. So this is why we're kind of really going back over the theme of saying, like, hey, we have to educate ourselves. It's our position. It's if we are in a position to do it, and it doesn't even have to do as whether or not you have a doctorate or not. Um, Knowing the facts about our health, Black health, and being able to share that information, like Butler talked about, as far as like different elderberry, and just having a cabinet full of supplements that he's using to keep his body fresh. Charletta was talking about cooking and things like that. These are going back, if you think about it, it goes back to where we came from as a people. We had the medical people in the tribe. We did have the cooks, we had the hunters, but we also had, before we could even, well before people read and write information down, they share those stories amongst ourselves. So there's a lot about in the medical community that we still, that he knows, I see, and there's a lot that you guys really don't know, and we're trying to get that education to you. So surveillance, I know that the CDC was talking about surveillance, and when I heard it, I kind of cringed, because you think about the mistrust of the medical community and you hear the word surveillance, and the target populations of surveillance are elderly, people of color, low income people. You think of it almost kind of like this. I thought about the Tuskegee experiment in other situations like that. Doc, can you please explain what their proposal is of surveillance, and whether or not it should be a concern? And if it is a concern, what should we be keeping an eye on as far as any kind of surveillance related activity with coronavirus testing?
Well, right now they're trying to get the capability of test hopefully more people to give an idea of who has it and who doesn't. That's the biggest problem right now, is that they want to be able to test with a wider net. But what we've seen thus far and what has been reported is that more people in white communities and more affluent communities are getting tested more readily than even populations that are higher risk. There are several stories of African Americans going to the emergency room with definite symptoms of this virus who weren't tested. And that's where perceptual things have to change. There, we can't, they like to say there's no biases in medicine, but even as a physician, I've seen it firsthand from other physicians. There are biases in medicine. And that's where having a stronger advocacy wing, having people who can advocate for you, and you being a strong advocate for yourself can help you try to push past some of those biases and get things done. But as far as right now, the hope is to be able to more widely test people, also to be able to test people's antibodies, which just would be a normal kind of blood draw that you would get for checking anything, any normal labs, and just seeing if you were someone who had it, you're someone who recovered from it. Now, can your immunity help someone else? But there's no risk of surveillance just alone in the African American or minority communities at this point, where there's going to be a higher scrutiny or anything like that in this population. Right now, it's like you said previously, this affects everyone: black, white, rich, poor, where you live doesn't really matter. So it's really trying to get to the point where we're disseminating tests with a more kind of judicious way instead of the way we've been doing it.
Definitely, that's so definitely. I can't even speak right now. Definitely appreciate that breakdown. Like I said, I'm in the medical community. My wife's in the medical community. Um, we understand what surveillance means on a broader scope, but just the word surveillance, I just think it was very tone deaf for the administration, or whoever came up with the link, or whoever came up with the CDC recommendations to use that type of word. If they were able to explain that better, I think that would have been appropriate. But they're so focused on getting the economy open, and which is understandable. It was almost kind of like the discussion of medical surveillance and contract tracing was almost like a footnote. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, but this is more of our core focus. And
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing that we had talked about, collectively, all of us is, the fact that when this is over, we know good and well that there's not going to be a lot of resources dedicated. I mean, right now they're good talking points, and because
Mm-hmm.
also everybody's pretty much on an election year. But by the end of the day, it has to be incumbent upon us as African Americans to make sure that we have these conversations and keep these conversations going, not only during this crisis but afterwards.
I agree with that. I would say that as Black people, also now is a great time to kind of take inventory. You know, if you're someone who lost a job, um, or you find yourself where you can't make the money you used to due to this virus, now's the time to get creative. We all come from God, so we have the power of creativity in us. Okay, so now what can I do going forward to have multiple streams that are even, um, I would say, pandemic proof? Like, what industries can I get in that are still functioning to where I can still put food on the table if I need to? So it's all, everything is about perspective and just how you kind of how you view things. So the ups and downs of life have just taught me to always try to be prepared. So right now, what are you going to do now that's going to prepare you for when this coronavirus is no more? Whenever they do whatever they're going to do, whether it be a vaccine or however they're going to open up back the economy. Now the life as we know it may never be the same, but how are you going to function? What is your purpose? How are you going to serve those still, even after we're able to move and go as we used to? And you were talking about the trust as far as with the medical community, and I think as Black people, we have a mistrust everywhere. We have a mistrust with the medical community. We have a mistrust with the media. We have a mistrust with the government. So we've been put in a situation where we're always looking over our shoulder or looking to be sure what you're telling me is accurate just from the way we've been treated since we've got here. So now was a great time as for Black people to really kind of come together and tighten the cords of how we treat each other. Like I see so many things, and I don't see this with any other race. Maybe that's because I'm not around. Well, I guess I am. I'm around a lot of races a lot, but I don't see any other race that's combative as we are. Like the Black men, the Black women. It just seems like we're at war. Like I hear Black women dogging out Black men and Black men dogging out Black women. You need to do this better, you need to do that better. I'm trying to figure out where all that anger and mistrust, even within ourselves, comes from. Now was a great time for us as a community to come together and heal and repair trust and to build each other up. Because we need each other. Like we're all
You,
we're
that
all.
may,
Go ahead.
I think that's true, but but if you think about it, there's a flip side to that too. And there's another side that nobody quite comes together like we do too, because even though there's a side to us that can be quite negative, and I agree 100%, and there's a part of us that can be to the point where, and I don't like it. I don't like that part of us where we go against each other. But to be totally honest, there's a part of us that you don't see anywhere else where when we do come together, it's gold. And we help each other like nobody else does. And when one of us gets in trouble, whether it's if my situation goes bad and all of my girls come to my rescue and they pull up and they help me pack and they grab boxes, and one of them is at the grocery store and the other one is calling around to get this together for me. I mean, we come together like nobody else does. So I think that there's a strength that we have that when we use it for good is very powerful. So that's the part that I saw once this happened, because we started to, when people couldn't find meat in the store, I mean, it almost reminded me of growing up. People couldn't find meat in the store, they couldn't find toiletries, and it was like everybody just made sure other people's kids could eat. It was that basic instinct to where you made sure somebody else's kids were taken care of. You made sure that everybody was okay. And I just hope that from this situation, that's what we take from it, that we get back to that common decency that is at the root of where we all come from, you know. And the one point that I wanted to kind of make in my part in this is that we need to make sure as women that we set boundaries for ourselves, because I think that's another obstacle that sometimes people don't always recognize. Because I recently, over the last year, I lost 60 pounds, and I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not, I don't have like the background to say all the technical things, but I know what it's like to feel like, okay, I know I need to do better. And there are a lot of people out here that are on the other side of that, that have and I didn't get diagnosed with diabetes. I didn't get diagnosed with a serious illness, thank God. But what happened was when my mother passed away, I knew that if I didn't cut it off and if I didn't head some things off, that's where I was headed. So that was enough for me. But I know that there are a lot of people out here, they don't like being called fat. They don't like being talked about. They don't like what they see in the mirror. So there's a side to this where they've pretty much just adapted to the fact that they have a weight problem, and they feel like, okay, well, this is just something I have to deal with. But for me, it came down to a point where I took music and dancing, something that I knew I could stick to. And that's what kind of put me over the hump. Just something I knew I could stick to, but it wasn't easy. And I ended up having to set boundaries. I lost friends because I ended up saying simple things like, I can't be on the phone with you for an hour. I cannot sit and talk to you and just chit chat and kiki with you, because that was a hindrance to me. And so these are the things that people don't think about as being a big deal, but it's what it's going to come down to. So it's about cooking your own food, staying active in a way that you can stick to, not in a way that what you see on the infomercials and what you see your friend doing and what works for everybody else, but it's something that has to resonate with you and that you can stick to. And hopefully, people that are listening, it'll help somebody, because to me, it has to be something that works for you as an individual. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. It's just something that you are not going to end up sticking to. And the bottom line is that you're healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Russell?
Yes.
Just any comments on that too, as you are on the panel?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of things of what she said are extremely important, and I applaud you for taking your own um, personal control of your weight. But we have a lot of things that go on. Uh, at one time, like I said, I've been up and down with this weight thing. I said it on the last panel. And at one time, me and my wife were really heavy into working out and watching our diet, that it was difficult even at holiday functions with the family, because they were looking at us like, why y'all being, uppity, and why you not eating what we made?
Exactly.
Like, you know, and
Exactly.
and my wife actually has been pescatarian, meaning that she only eats fish as her source of protein for over 7 years. And when she first started, we would go to family functions. And whenever we had a family function in our house, we made sure that there was a fish dish and some other meat source for the rest of the family. She would go to family functions and they would be like, oh, but we made a salad. Like they were acting like the only thing she ate was a salad. She's like, no, I eat fish. I don't eat anything with meat in it. But they would offer her like green beans, but it had smoked turkey in it, or even smoked ham. And it took them some time to conceptualize what she was doing, to the point that, fast forward, some of their kids growing up in this generation, one of their kids, one of her sister's kids, flirted with being pescatarian. One of them also flirted with being vegetarian. That they got a better understanding of what their own sister was going through when they were having her over for dinner, as they were dealing with their own kids. And it is really challenging, because food is very important in the African American community, to the
Yes.
sense that we use food for celebration. We
Yes.
use food for when things are bad, to
Yes.
make us feel better.
Mhm.
And sometimes those are, particularly the items we're cooking. Look at what goes on at most churches
Mhm.
after service. They have some type of meal prepared for the parishioners, but a lot of times those churches are not offering healthy alternatives.
No.
There's fried fish, or fried chicken. There's, macaroni and cheese. And I'm not saying it's anything wrong with eating that stuff in moderation, but when that's what you're eating every Sunday, and then that's also what you're eating several times during the week, then that's why the rates of obesity and the rates of hypertension and the rates of diabetes become more prominent in our community. I'm not saying that's the sole source, but those eating habits, those food ingrained habits that we're taught. You think about how many kids go to church and they're taught these habits now are passing on generationally. So to kind of piggyback on what you said, you do lose a lot of friends. You do confuse a lot of people in your life when you say, hey, I can't hang out with you because I'm going to go work out. Now, and I don't drink, or I don't drink as much as I used to because I don't want to take in those excess calories. People do start look at you funny, but it's a lifestyle change for you. And sometimes it's not a lifestyle change for them. That's the way I look at it. This is the choice I'm making. Either you're going to be supportive of it or you're not. But I know I need to make this choice because it's best for me.
Right.
And so, that is definitely something that is prevalent in our community. And it gets back to even what you said, Terrence. It gets back to the education piece. We have to not just keep these experiences to ourselves. We have to use it to allow someone to educate themselves, to allow someone to make a decision to learn more about this. Even like Butler said about the mental health and getting your cabinet together. That's an educational piece.
Right.
A lot of things that you guys are saying are so important because someone's going to hear this and someone's going to make a change.
I hope so. I mean, that's the purpose of the podcast.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Whether you have 10 listeners or 10,000, because someone's it's almost like the doors of the church are open. I know there's someone in the church that's ready, and someone's going to hear this podcast and they were already there, and this is going to give them the momentum. This is going to give them the push they need to say, you know what, I'm tired of being furloughed. It's time for me to look at avenues where I can make money, where it's not dependent on somebody telling me I can or cannot come to work.
Right.
I'm tired of having this issue with my weight that, I'm going to have to look at my friends and family and tell them it's time for me to make this change.
Exactly.
Or like you even said, Terrence, I'm tired of mismanaging my money.
Right.
And I got a good job, but I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. It's time for me to learn financial literacy, understand how to build wealth, even during this time, so I leave a legacy for my kids and maybe my kids' kids.
Absolutely.
So, these are definitely important details and testimonies. Let's just be clear. You guys are giving testimonials that this is going to springboard someone into making that change.
Well, we definitely appreciate this panel discussion, and we definitely appreciate you, Dr. Russell, coming on board. And we really hope that you are open to coming on again in the near future. So, I mean, this is, one of the things Butler and I had talked about was making sure that this is a continuing conversation. So we don't want to just have a guest just come and show.
Sure.
This is from the people. This is, we don't have any celebrities. Hopefully when I get one day,
Right.
but I mean, the reality is this is a podcast for the people, by the people. And
Well,
so No,
Well,
go ahead, Trey.
my brother and my sister now on the phone. Whenever, if you're at this point, I tell Terrence the same thing. Terrence to me is, I consider him my brother. If
Absolutely.
you guys need anything, if you have a medical question, if you just have something you want to talk about and want to get my perspective, Terrence, please feel free to share my information with them, and I will come on. You know this, you're my brother. I'll come on anytime you want me to have me on. And if you're looking for a particular guest, and I can assist you in getting someone on, let me know, and I'll funnel other people to you too, man, because this is important. This, what you guys are trying to do, what you're trying to disseminate in the community, which will hopefully become something that is not disseminated just amongst a small group, but becomes a nationwide thing. You know, this, what you're doing is important. There's this voice, these voices, your voices are needed.
We definitely appreciate that,
I
man.
absolutely
Definitely appreciate
appreciate it. Like Tupac said, I might not change the world, but I definitely want to spark the brain of the person that will change the world. So I think
Exactly.
y'all have to
it.
do my part.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that you said that, Butler, because I mean, we can't. When I first talked about the Mahogany Legacy Project, the details are going to come out in the future about what that entails. This podcast is a spinoff of that concept. When Butler and I had first talked about it and I approached him about starting a podcast, we knew we weren't going to reach everybody. And what we're trying to do is find a variety of ways and measures to get the message out. Some people are going to listen to podcasts, some people are not. We did a video last week or the last episode, and that's on YouTube. And hopefully people are able to watch that. We're just trying to find different ways to get the message out because what a lot of people don't understand, you know, on Facebook controls the algorithms. So we're pretty much forced into this dead end tunnel where knowledge and from or to be able to transfer knowledge to each other has been restricted, and we have to start controlling some of our own platforms. And I see that there are other people who are trying to do it, and I think that's awesome. And they have some great ideas as well, and I would love to have them on the show. But hell, if we could just reach somebody, that's the biggest deal and stuff. And all the other things are going to come because of the actions that we have, because I feel that our attentions, everybody on this episode, excuse me, and when we had the Anthony Moore a while back, we all had the same intentions. And it's just really good to have people that are in the community um, that are out there and stuff. And just for people who feel like there's no hope for us to be able to say, hey, I can identify with these brothers and sisters on this podcast, um, just real briefly about Dr. Russell's background. He's originally from the South Side of Chicago. He didn't have he didn't have a silver spoon in the mouth. None of us on this podcast did, and we went through a lot of obstacles and adversities and roadblocks, but just to be able to say, okay, here's where we are today. Let's share these experiences and stuff, and hopefully listening to that, you can feel enlightened to do that. So we're wrapping up this particular episode. So I guess you say 5-10 minute warning. Reflecting thoughts, Butler.
Reflecting thoughts I have is I'm thinking about us actually doing this podcast and going forward. Like, this pandemic is one of the reasons we're actually able to sit down and get this done. Because, like, if things were still normal, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be in somebody's basketball gym, watching my kids play or at a track meet somewhere. So this time to slow down is, this giving us this platform. So like I said, I'm big on knowledge, but I'm also big on application. So if you heard anything through all of our podcasts and even in this one, definitely apply it to your life. Everyone's situation is different. If you can just pull a jewel, a nugget, you may not felt the whole thing. You just pull, say, hey, I feel that point there. Take it and apply it. Just don't listen to it. Just my whole goal is whoever we can reach. I want your life changed by something you heard. I want you to say, my life changed. I heard something and I moved and acted on it. And now I'm at a higher level of awareness, higher level of consciousness to where it benefited my family. I was able to tell my people, stop eating so much fried food. Or I was told my people, you might want to exercise more. Or you might want to look at your finances. You might want to take more accountability of how you're spending your money. You might want to invest your money more, be a producer versus a consumer more. Any nugget that we drop, I just pray that you use it and apply it to your life. It's because it's all about elevating each other. Everything we're spitting out, we want you to take it and elevate yourself. We just want you to grab anything and just pull yourself up, by your bootstraps, like however they tell us, and have an awesome testimony and teach somebody else something you've learned. We don't know it all. We never. And one thing I always tell myself, I'm forever a student. So I'm learning from everybody that we bring on. I'm learning from Dr. Duncan. I'm learning from everybody. I'm a sponge. So we never want to come off as being like preachy or anything like that. We're all students and we're trying to learn. We're trying to help each other. But definitely, again, apply anything that you've learned to your own life and pass it on to others. And I think that's how we pull ourselves up as a people.
Man, that's dope. And that's why we run it together, man. We've been doing this, like I said, back to did you log your miles back then,
Right, no doubt.
So, but he hit it on the nail, and he said it way much better than I could say it. So definitely appreciate that, bro. We, fourth podcast episode. We've been trying to get this running for a while, and it was, just to be able to do it when we're forced to be hunkered down, and now we've had the time, and I know that it's just going to continue to get better and better. So I mean, I'm excited doing this. I'm like you, a student, just learning, and as much as I know, there's still so much I can learn. So definitely, this is fun. So Charletta, reflecting thoughts.
My final thoughts are that I would just like to leave everybody with just the fact that you can do it. If you put your mind to it, that you have to fight for it though. And anything worth having is worth fighting for. And that basically, I like to say it like this: you have to fight for your life. You are going to have to fight for your life, literally and figuratively. But it is like the one thing that is worth fighting for, and it's worth it. You owe it to yourself because you were created. Um, you were created for greatness, and you're worth it. And the people that are counting on you, whether you have children, the people in your life, the people that love you, the people that are looking up to you, those are the people that are counting on you. So, and you owe it to yourself. So you can do it. And we hope we said something today that can help you.
Absolutely. And, just again, for this particular episode, we said it last episode, the best way to reach Charletta Taylor, if you have any questions for her, for her nonprofit, like I said, she provides mentoring to single mothers. You can contact her on Charletta Taylor on Facebook, and, feel free to ask her any questions, and she will be a regular contributor on the show. So we got a couple more episodes for you to get on, Char.
Okay, I will be here.
Absolutely. Dr. Russell, just any reflecting thoughts before we close?
First of all, I want to say thank you again for having me on back to back. I really appreciate it. I also want to say, if you guys ever need me on again, please don't hesitate to contact me. And if there's anybody in a particular field that you're interested in having on, I will do my very best with the contacts that I have to get them to do your show. My reflecting thought is, keep going. This is so needed. This is so vital. This is something that I hope that you guys can continue to do, because your voices are needed in our community. The perspective that you all bring, I really like the mixture that you guys bring. And that also is going to help, hopefully, for you guys to find your audience and for this to continue to go on. The perspectives you bring are also very important. And, we sometimes just want to, we've gotten to this silo kind of tribal society where we just want to hear one perspective.
Absolutely.
But we have to hear, particularly in our community, we have to hear multiple voices, because everybody's perspective in some way matters. So you guys just keep doing what you're doing, and like I said, thank you again.
You know what? I'm gonna take you up on that offer, and we can talk about it offline. But we can definitely try to get your schedule. But just thinking about what Butler was talking about, and back to those cavern goons, I'm gonna keep on pestering them about. It would be really dope if we can get a Black nutritionist on this show. I think that with the four of us and actually having a nutritionist on this show, I think they can really provide a nice expanded perspective, because it'll be really nice for one of us to be on a show like this, to be able to provide whatever information, tools, or just education, about how to make sure that we keep our nutrients, minerals in our bodies, and just kind of build our immunity, and just, prolonging life. This is what we're talking about, is prolonging life. So this healthcare piece on these first 4 episodes have been really amazing. And once again, thank you very much. So, and it's really dope for you to come on and do two shows with us, like that.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yes. So, we'll definitely get you on again before our season concludes, because we haven't figured out a number yet. We'll probably wrap it up at 10 or 12, but we definitely want to have you on again. So we'll definitely be in contact about that.
Yeah,
and
definitely
keep us updated on your health too. Let us know
thank you.
how you're recovering, and you and your wife, if anything recurs, anything like that, definitely keep us abreast on how you all doing.
Definitely, I will. And I appreciate it once again. And I actually do know several Black nutritionists, so we can definitely talk offline. I actually know several Black mental health professionals too, to even speak to some of the things that Butler was talking about. And even I can probably contact a few people to discuss some of the issues with weight loss in the Black community as well, to talk to Charletta, right?
Charletta, yeah.
Charletta's perspective, excuse me, and talk to her perspective. But just hit me up offline. Anybody that I know you are privy to, and I will lobby for them. I will lobby for them because like I said, this is definitely needed. So just let me know.
I think that's great. I think that is great, because I will be glad to. I think that's great. A great resource. A great resource, because women come to me and I'm like, I don't know. I just know what I did. I'm not a professional. I don't know.
It sounds like, it's just one of those things, and I don't know if it's going to come from this group or whatever and stuff, but I think that to have a repository of information, it's someone down the line and stuff would just be really great. And, I think this is the first step, because, the beauty of what we're doing right now is that, we control the message. Excuse me. CNN is not controlling it. Fox is not controlling it. The local news is not controlling it. We're talking very freely about issues that affect us, things that we talk about, whether we do it privately or amongst our friends, or you just happen to see on social media or at work. It feels really good to be able to have a conversation about something that directly affects us instead of being a footnote on in newspapers or just in the news in general. So thank you again, all of you guys, for being able to participate on this podcast. I mean, it's, we made it to the 4th podcast, Butler. I mean, it's just, I can't really say in words like how amazing that feels, just to be able to take a chance meeting to just grow to a mentoring program, to go into a podcast, and just having something that we can reshare these messages over and over again. Like our voices are on like you hear me say all the time, we got it on wax. So.
Right. we gotta give a shout out. We gotta keep shouting out Peanut for giving introduction.
Oh yeah, Aaron Smith III, Peanut.
Yes,
man.
sir. We gotta give him a shout out.
Yeah,
and,
crazy cuz,
I'm gonna spend the rest of my evening getting this crab rangoon recipe together. My first batch, it tasted amazing, but the presentation wasn't where I wanted it. So I'm going back for round 2 from my perfection phase. So that's what I'll be working on tonight.
Hey, this thing keeps on going and stuff, man. Hey, we might mess around and have a podcast and a food truck. You heard me?
Hey, let's make it happen. We miss. How people missing Chinese food. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. hey, we won't even have a food truck and stuff, man. We just have a food car. We just ride around and stuff, man. And just kind of like pop the trunk and stuff, and just get out the little mini tables and just and load up and roll to the next spot.
Yes, sir. I'm about to give them this fried rice too. No peas, no carrots.
Okay.
But, but we're gonna get it right.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for being on the show. This concludes the 4th episode of Mahogany Thoughts. Be blessed. Hopefully that you guys were able to learn something from this podcast that you can apply to in your life, or just hold the conversation amongst your friends or family. Hope you guys stay safe. Please wash your hands. Please practice social distancing. This virus is no joke. Don't let the lies put you in a situation that you will wind up regretting. Take care of yourselves. I mean, and when this pandemic is over, continue to take care of yourselves. Continue to check up on your family. Continue to pick up the phone and check up on your loved ones and stuff. And even people that you don't even regularly communicate, just pick up the phone and have a 10-minute conversation. I've been doing that a lot. Usually every night, I just go through my phone and just call people, I've had communications with over the last year or two, just say, hey, y'all good? And it's amazing where those conversations can go to. So thanks again, everybody. And we are out.
No doubt. Appreciate y'all.
Bye.
Thank you again. Everybody have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.